It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, October 24th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi In The Media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone. Yes, it is Tuesday. We're into the meat of the week, and how are you doing thus far? Don't forget, guys, every Thursday we have a question and answer, so get those questions ready and shoot them my way. If you haven't yet, leave your like and comments to build our community. Yes, we had our highest likes ever for this podcast. We had 46 likes for last Friday. Very, very grateful all of you taking up that challenge. We're going to, as time goes on, we're going to beat that one again. We got to hit 50 next time too, right? So just super happy everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is The Evidence That the Lord God Has Done Things for Us. Amen. And it's a very interesting message because I think in our heads, we know that God has done things for us. But to truly realize about this, you kind of have to reach that level that Sunseam reaches where he knows absolutely in reality that God has done things for him, that no matter how difficult, even if he's there for 10 years, even where he is right now, he is always giving thanks to God and always rejoicing. And that's something that I do believe that we have to reach that level also. All right, so it is Tuesday. The meat of the week has started. Yes, I consider the meat of the week Tuesday through Thursday because Monday is kind of like the head of the week, right? It's just the beginning point, and it's not where the most of the work gets done. And then Friday is the tail end where everyone kind of relaxes before the weekend comes in. It's Tuesday to Thursday. This is where all the things happen, right? So I hope you guys are enjoying your week. Lots of things to get done before this year is over. Yes, it's the 24th. We have 1 week before this month is over. And, like this week's message said, it's about timing. The timing of when you take action, that really matters. So don't just pray and wait for that time. Don't just start doing things just because you prayed for it. You got to wait for the right time. The time of 2023 is ticking away, right? We got things we got to get done before this year is over. There's only 38 days before December. So you got to kind of think to yourselves like the year, remember for Providence, the year ends at the end of November. December is the month of judgment, right? Which is kind of scary, especially for this year. I am not quite sure what judgment is going to happen in December. And I'm kind of smiling and laughing right now because I'm scared. That's my natural reaction to oh my gosh, what is actually going to happen during this time of judgment? And it's kind of I'm really curious to see how, what things are going to happen. 2023, only those that make it to the end. Blessed are those that make it to the end of 2023. What blessing are we looking forward to, right? And that's it's kind of it also connects to the part that says you won't know God's will until the end. So it's really, really interesting because it states that when we do God's work, we don't really know what is actually going to happen until the end. What is God's will? What does God really want? So for me, I'm just wow. Blessed are those that make it to the end of the 1335, end of 2023. What does that mean? Am I going to win more than $1 in the lottery? Is that what the blessing's going to be? I'm trying to figure out what is this greater blessing. If I were to tell you an honest opinion, right? There's that physical thing I want to be blessed with, but I'm man, you know what would be awesome? And I would really love this more than anything else, right? I'm going to tell you straight up is when it comes to something more personal, I'd be I'd really love that message to come out when it's all sins are forgiven. That would be oh, yes, God kind of thing, right? That would be incredible, right? To hear that in a message for this year, for me, that would be one of the most release. release your stress, release all these things. Like I would be like, wow, that'd be awesome. Like, and when I think about this, isn't it awesome how we think in this history? Like, we're not thinking like, I gotta win the lottery. I'm obviously, physically, we would all hope for this to happen. But we'd be like, man, wouldn't that be crazy? Like, if our sins could, like, it came out in the message, your sins are forgiven. I'd be like, whoa! Like, yeah, like, I think Providence people were just a different level of thinking, right? And of course, when I'm talking physically, I would say I'm quite physical too. And the things that I think about that I want to be blessed in are very physical also. But there's nothing better than hearing that you are clean. Like, these are all the messages we hear, like clean yourself, repent, 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 repent. All these things, we hear it all the time, but it's just, there's nothing different. It's like that feeling of refreshness, right? Being revived, like your sins are forgiven. It's just like, that's the thing. I'm like, yeah, that would be crazy, right? And for me, I'm just like, yeah, that is something that that would be kind of cool too. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things that you guys would like, right? Physically and spiritually. Write in the comments, what do you think you guys would want? Like, what do you think is going to be the blessing at the end? What's something that you would really like to hear? Like when I said, I would love to hear your sins are forgiven. Like that would be something great. If it was like, if it was physical, obviously, it's something like the lottery, something along that line, right? Getting the things that you need for in this physical life, right? But that spiritual one, like, I don't know. Right now, what do you guys think? Put in your comments. What do you think would be great for, like, the blessing at the end of 2023? What would be the spiritual thing you'd love to hear, or you'd love to happen? And of course, we are all talking, like, we're all gonna, besides the most obvious one, right? Because I'm talking about more personal. The most obvious one is like all these trials and stuff are done, right? Like it'll all finish. Like that would be great. But even for yourself, I'm just curious what you guys would think would be a great blessing for your life right now. Yeah. And that's something, a lot of times what we say is prayer. And God hears those things too. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I think in my heart a lot these days too. Actually, another interesting thing, like for me, I'm grateful for all the things that you guys have done through Patreon and stuff like that. But I do other stuff. Like I do some like these odd ins and outs to help me with my coffee addiction. Like I have an app that's basically just surveys. You just answer surveys and it's like really short amount of time. Maybe takes me about 90 minutes per week. If 90 minutes, every 2 weeks, they send me like $20 on PayPal. Yeah. And it's super, like, it pays for like this small stuff like coffee or like my haircut, whatever it is, right? And it doesn't take a ton of time. So yeah, I'm always trying to find these small things to do that can support my addictions, which is my coffee. Like I do these types of things. Like, honestly, it's not even it's like if you take the 2 weeks, which is 3 hours for, you get $20 for that. It's not great at all, right? It's bad. Like you're not getting paid much per hour. Like you should be getting like 40, 45 an hour too, but it's easy. You could do it anytime on my phone. And like if I was in Malaysia, it would be like 7 coffees, which is a week of coffee for me in Malaysia, a week of lattes if I was in Malaysia, right? So even that itself, it'd be like, yeah, that's helping me out. Like I'm saving half my coffees if I was in Malaysia, but not here, obviously. Here, it's gonna help me out with about 4 coffees. Yeah. Oh, I have a question for you guys out there in Korea or Taiwan. I need a list of good coffee shops I can visit while I'm there, right? And I know that as it gets colder, the colder it gets, the more often I will be in a cafe, which is probably more in Korea because I know that Taiwan isn't that hot. I mean, Taiwan isn't that cold, right? I'm sure this is like a good season to go to Taiwan. I'm figuring, right? Because I know it's going to get really cold in Korea, which means I will want to sit down at a cafe a little bit longer, do my podcast preparation, stuff like that too. So yeah, just wondering if you guys have any things, just DM me about a list of like really, really nice coffee places that I can go to in Taiwan and Korea. Yeah, I got some people already sending me some stuff from Instagram. And yeah, I would love to go to places where you've actually been, because then I can. It's a little bit more easier to trust what you guys are recommending because you've actually been there and tasted it. But then again, I'm a crazy coffee snob, which means just because you like it doesn't mean I'm gonna like it, and I probably have a more like what's that word? I'm more picky with the taste of what I'm drinking and stuff like that too. Oh, you know what's something I'm really into right now? I'm not sure if you guys are into this stuff. Like when I'm doing my work, these days, I say for the last 4 days, I listen to a lot of like on YouTube. It's called like cafe jazz, right? It's like the jazz music you hear in a cafe, and for some reason, I can work really well with it, right? It feels like it's helping me work more productively. I don't know why. I put on my earphones, turn on the noise cancellation, put this cafe jazz music on, and for me, just these days, it works wonders. I'm curious about what you guys listen to when you work. Like when you have some music in your ears or something you listen to that helps you become more productive. What do you guys listen to when you work, right? Or I'm sure some of you guys don't listen to anything at all, but for me, that's what I'm listening to right now is I'm listening to cafe jazz music on YouTube. It's like a live stream kind of thing, right? So yeah. Yeah, those are just random. Sorry, those are just some random thoughts. Random thoughts, right? That I'm having lately. But I had a couple questions coming to me over there from listeners around the world, and one of the questions someone was asking me about was Jesus walking on water. Very, very interesting question. Did Jesus walk on water? What does Sunseam say about this? Okay, so the thing you need to know what Sunseam said is, number one is it's not literally walking on water. Yes, he walked on water, but not how people think, as in he's like, the water's like 10 meters deep, but he's walking on top of it, like that type of miracle. And so it's not really the way that we think it means. So when Sunseam explained the story, he's like, what happens was the disciples were sleeping in the boat. Okay, so when they're sleeping in the boat, they were, on the water. And then, when the morning came, it was low tide. So the water isn't very deep at all. It's very, very shallow, right? So the disciples were sleeping. When they woke up, they're a bit groggy. They looked up and they see Jesus walking towards them. And they freaked out and they thought that was Jesus walking on water. So it wasn't like that type of walking on water that we think. Right? So Jesus went out to the boat just like kind of innocently, like, hey, it's good morning, everyone, kind of thing, right? And when the disciples got up, they were groggy and such, and they thought Jesus was walking on water. That's what they thought, right? So the part that I don't remember very well, because I know like the rest of the story, Peter comes out, he walks on water, and then he falls into the water when he takes his eyes off Jesus and looks at the storms and the winds and the waves. I don't remember how Sunseam explained that part. Right? I'm not sure if that part is just the parable that's extended from that one situation, but because people would say if the water's that shallow, how would Peter fall into the water, right? And that's the part I actually don't remember. I do remember Sunseam did say that it's not literal walking on water, and I do remember Sunseam's like, yeah, it's the water was super, super shallow, so it looks like you're walking on water, especially if you just wake up. But I don't remember if he said that's just the parable that Jesus talks about that, and then that's the parable he uses to explain how to keep your eyes on the Lord. Because we know the actual interpretation for that is the water is the world, right? So if you look at like Revelation chapter 17, verse 1 and verse 15, we use this for the clouds lecture too. That the waters that the prostitute was sitting on represents people's, multitudes, languages. So it's like the world. So what happens is if you have faith, absolute faith, and you only look on Jesus, like look to Jesus and only him, you can walk on the world, which means that you will be someone who is not controlled or fall into the world. And then the reason why Peter fell into the water is the moment he took his eyes off Jesus, he looked to the left and right and saw the winds and waves, and those tribulations kind of made him afraid, and that's when he started to fall into the water kind of thing, right? So that's like the symbolic meaning. I'm not sure. I know the first part for sure. If any of you out there remember the second part, what Sunseam talked about this, I greatly appreciate it if you post it in like the comments, stuff like that too. But I don't actually remember That part of it. I remember the first part for sure. So that's kind of that's kind of one of the things, one of the questions that someone did DM me. The second thing someone was asking me is, they're wondering, who is Jesus's real father? It's like, Luke, I am your father, right? And this has been kind of it's not like a big deal. It's not like a contentious issue, but Jesus, Sunseem talked about it a bit before, and he just said, hey, it was a miracle. So, but then he also said babies only can be made in one way, right? So I have heard rumors in the past of what Sunseem might have said, right? But it's not confirmed. So that's why I don't even want to talk about that kind of stuff. But ultimately, Sunseem says, yeah, it's a miracle because it was inspired by the Holy Spirit, right? So it's a different type of miracle than what we are thinking. And, like Sunseem also said, things always happen with reason, which means babies are only made one way, right? And the way Jesus was born, he was born the way that all babies are made, right? So for me since there's no clear answer to it, I don't even talk about it. Like someone even asks about it, I don't even bother with this question. I'm just like, hey, it's a miracle. Let's move forward, right? It's not an issue that we have to make people stumble over or make them think that, like some people hold this as a very huge thing that will make or break their faith kind of thing. And that's why for us, it's not a big issue. It's not a big issue at all. So that's why I don't really go into it, even when I teach it, because there's nothing clear about it, right? All we know is it's a miracle. A miracle meaning it was inspired by the Holy Spirit. And we also know that babies are only made one way. So that is something where it's like, yeah, well, the question you have to go into, is it even worth getting into a fight over? Is it even worth making someone stumble over? And the answer is not really. It's not a make or break thing. So I can't give you, I don't know. Like we can assume it's someone from the tribe of Judah, because that Jesus is supposed to come from the tribe of Judah, which is Joseph is from the tribe of Judah, but apparently in the scriptures he did not sleep with his wife, right? So that's why he was kind of freaking out, but the angel told him that it was from God kind of thing. So I don't know. Please, yeah, and I don't think it's really that important right now. It's not like a major issue or anything like that. We do have a new poll up, so if you guys want to go ahead and check out that poll, the poll is, when was the first time you went to Wonmyeongdong? So for me, I had a chance to go in 1998 actually. I had a chance to go in 1998, but I did not go, and the first time I actually went was in 2002. That was actually the first time I actually went. But in 2002, like my poll question for you guys is, like, when was the first time that you actually went? Right? Because we're going to have a considerable amount of people here that are brand new, some people that are old, some people that are like kind of like, 10 years, 15 years, stuff like that too. So like for me, even when I went, the gazebo in the pond was still considered quite new. There was no Holy Sun statue near the grass lawn. The Holy Sun rock wasn't there. It wasn't even close to what we had now. The most important thing of Wonmyeongdong when I went in 2002 was the Ambition Masterpiece, right? It was either finished or just finished. I think it was finishing. It was just finished, so it was really a big monumental thing, and there wasn't much focus on the surrounding area like it is right now, right? There's no waterfalls. Yeah, a lot of the stuff wasn't there. Well, when I went there too, there's no 316 Memorial Building. It was actually like a container. The cafeteria was so like dingy, like the floor was like concrete and dirt, and yeah, it wasn't really nice. All the surrounding places, they were all containers, like shipping containers converted into places to sleep. Yeah, that's what it was like when I was there. I slept in there a couple times too. Shower was just shower was like not even like a sauna. Like you had to go in with slippers because the ground was still concrete, all wet and stuff. You got like 20 guys in there and stuff like that too. And then you didn't have a washing machine. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, when you look at it right now is 1,000 times better than when I went in 2002, right? So yeah, a lot of things that they didn't have when I first came. Oh, I got this interesting message, a cool message from a listener over there in Australia, and they wanted me to correct something from my Sunday message word study, right? So this is what the message came. It says, in the beginning of the message, Sunseam started with what God and Jesus said to them, which was, the word is like I said the word is like a landmark for this time period. And the person wrote to me and said, it's actually a signpost for each person's life. And that is why you have to hear it well, like talking about the word. Only then will you correctly get to your destination, right? But then this person said I mentioned landmark instead of signpost or guidepost, which is of course to provide information to travelers, helping and navigating them to find their way. And for us, it's the signpost of the word that navigates us to find and get to our ultimate destination of the Trinity, the Lord and heaven, right? And basically, this person said, I was just hoping other listeners would not be confused by it, right? So for me, very, very grateful and thankful. And just to let you know, the reason why I said landmark, because that's how it was said in the message when I heard it. It was literally said landmark, right? The preacher said landmark. The preacher did not say signpost, right? And right after this listener sent me that, I talked to the preacher right away. I was like, hey, someone was telling me the word is signpost and not landmark. And I was just asking him what the reasoning was. And basically, they were talking about their understanding of the word signpost and the meaning behind it, right? And they said landmark because it was something that seemed to be more easier, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So so a signpost. A signpost, I checked the definition. A signpost is a post. Like, let's pretend that, say, you're on a trail and there's a fork in the trail. And then there's a sign that directs travelers like this, turn right, it goes over here, turn left, it goes over there, whatever it is, right? Or it could be like some type of map or something along that line. Now, a landmark is kind of similar. So I was thinking there's multiple definitions of what a landmark is. So you can have like a landmark, say if you go on a trail, you'll have like these little things that they stick into the ground so you know you're on the right track. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what the preacher was thinking about, what this signpost was to help you guide you along the way so you go on the right path, go to your destination, right? Or it's going to be some type of object, like say a huge rock that everyone knows. And it marks like this location, like, hey, when you hit the large rock here, take a right over there kind of thing, right? So, which is much closer to what I thought the word landmark. I was looking at that definition of landmark. Like, it doesn't have to be a structure like the Eiffel Tower, just using it as an example when it comes to, what do you call it? When it comes to like a city, a landmark would be the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It would be Big Ben in London. It would be the Space Needle in Seattle, right? But the original word used in the message was a signpost. So if you're on a trail, you may see a signpost that tells you directions of where to go. If you study the signpost and know it really well, you know how to get to your destination, right? Which basically, it is close to what a landmark is, as in it is a marker. It can be a marker that tells you you're on the right track or says, hey, this direction you go here, this direction you go over there, and tells you which side you should go, right? So if you think about it as in a trail, a signpost can be a sign that has, a map or has words on it. And in one sense, if you don't read the signpost well, you won't get to your destination. Just like a landmark, if you don't see the landmarks, if you don't understand what the landmarks are, then you won't go into the right destination. Which, if you look at a landmark, it could be something, it doesn't have to be a literal like object. It could be a rock, a tree, or something like an Eiffel Tower. Yeah, but so what I'm saying is the actual real word used or the translated word used in Korean is signpost, right? And technically speaking, you want to look at it in that way as a signpost, but also it's basically something that shows you that you're going on the right direction. If you know it really well, if you know the signpost really well, then from there you can get to your direction, right? So it's not so far off, but the actual word is signpost. Okay, that's the actual translated word is signpost. Okay, but here's the interesting part. This is the interesting part for me. This listener, who's a friend, gave me this message from Patreon. So this person signed up for Patreon and then sent me this message and said, "Oh, the reason I'm signed up for Patreon is for this reason." I was like, "Oh, interesting," right? Which is kind of cool for me. He signed up to Patreon to tell me and correct me about this in my podcast, and I was like, I should make more mistakes. Then even more people will sign up for Patreon and write to me like this. Of course it's a joke, right? It's like, maybe I'm doing the wrong advertising, right? Maybe I should advertise Patreon as the place that I will take all your criticisms and feedback, and you can correct me in my podcast, so please sign up for Patreon. I shouldn't advertise about lectures and word studies or trainings, whatever it is, right? So I was like, yeah. Hey, I should be saying like, if you want to give me feedback, if you want to say something to me, you can join Patreon right now, right? But of course, this is a joke, so I'm not saying that this person criticized me. They totally didn't, right? I appreciate what the listener said, but it was interesting because he was like, I signed up so I can tell you this, right? So, and you guys know me. I'm open about this stuff. And if it's wrong, it's wrong, right? Or, I'll explain why or how the situation came about. So I found it quite interesting. I found it kind of cool and funny at the same time too. So guys, if you guys can follow suit, do the same thing. If you want to criticize, feedback, all this stuff, like something's wrong in my podcast, sign up for Patreon. It's too crazy. But yeah, I enjoy everyone. You know what the really interesting thing for me is? What I think about is like when I'm going to start traveling again a little bit more. And I thought about is when I meet a listener, because I don't know all the listeners, they're listening to my voice every day, but I have never heard or seen you guys, like most of the people, right? So it's like you guys know me because you hear me all the time. I talk about my life and all these things, but I don't know you guys, right? So a lot of people tell me like, oh, it's like I know you. We're like family. I hear your voice every day kind of thing, right? And I'm kind of like, yeah, we are like this MSD family, right? But it's interesting because I don't hear you guys. I don't see you guys. I don't know what's going on in your life unless you guys put it into the comments, stuff like that too. And I was thinking like, man, it would be kind of a little bit awkward, weird, or it'd be very interesting to meet you guys in person. And I'm a little bit like, maybe I'll disappoint you guys if it doesn't feel like I know you that well. But the truth is, I don't really know some of you that well, right? Some of you I've known all my life, but some of you I don't really know that well. So if you want to, make it less awkward, please just keep commenting. I would love to hear your comments. Yeah, you can introduce yourself too. I don't mind that either, right? So that just came to mind after I'm like listening to this, like, yeah, you know what? I haven't met most of the people. There's like 1,700 people. Actually, there's 1,100. There's 1,170. So it's 117. Someone pointed it out to me. It's 117 on my people that have subscribed to the MSD channel. So I'm not sure, but for me, it just came to mind right now. I was like, yeah, that it would be a little bit weird because I don't really know everyone, right? But I'm a very, very social person, so I would love to meet you guys over coffee. Coffee is what's that one thing? It's the thing that brings me together with other people to talk and enjoy, have a good time and stuff like that too. So yeah, when I go to Taiwan, I'm going for coffee. If you find me a good coffee place, I'll sit down, we can talk, and we can enjoy the coffee together and stuff like that too. Either way. All right. So yeah, that's kind of some of the thoughts that were going through my head and stuff like that too. Hope you guys are really, really enjoying this Tuesday morning already. Some of you it's the afternoon and whatnot, but most of you guys are watching this on the way to work or while you're cleaning. Other people saying they listen to it while they're cleaning, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. The person who, where the Airbnb I'm staying over there in Seattle, this person was telling, because they have the Airbnb and they clean the Airbnb after the guests leave and stuff. And they're like, this member was telling me like, oh, I listen to your podcast while I'm cleaning. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Like that was the whole purpose for this podcast. That's the whole purpose. Whether you're driving to work, driving to school, on the bus, on the train, you're cleaning, you're cooking, you have some downtime, you want to listen to the word or just what's going on around the world. That's the whole purpose and reason why I did this podcast, right? Yeah. All right, so yeah, before we get into that break, just letting you guys know that second section today is going to be on the practical word study. And of course, it's Tuesday, so we have Provi In The Media. We have 2 articles we're going to go into, especially about the sentencing of the 6 female executives from CGM. All right, so let's get into our first coffee break. So let's get into today's word study for today. And every Tuesday we have the practical word study. So a couple of points I did want to go over today, especially, well, this week's message is pretty hefty. A lot of different points did come out. And there's this part of the message I really liked, and it's be thankful in love no matter what happens. Hardships exist to prosper even more. You will prosper in the end like Wolmyeongdong, right? But you must absolutely believe, give glory. If you complain, Satan will come. All right. So I love this part of the message. And I think it's something that one practical matter, like there's some things when it comes to the practical word study, it's something that we can physically do or something we can reset in our hearts and our minds. It's kind of like, like a paradigm shift, like, hey, I should be thinking this way instead of that way, right? So let me give an example of going through difficulty that makes us prosper even more. So there is an author my brother loves to read. His name is Stephen King. They call him the king of horror books, okay? And he is a best-selling writer. He's sold over 350 million books, and it's still climbing, right? And his work has been made into several motion pictures, and all his movies, just movies, have generated like almost $2 billion at the box office, right? However, he tells a story about his very first work. His very first, he was a teacher in school. He was living in a trailer, okay? He's like literally living in a trailer with his wife. And his first work was a book called Carrie. Okay, that's his very, very first, the book that took him, that made him just jump off, right? And his first work, he said that when he was bringing it around to publishers, he was rejected 80 times. Okay, so I'm not sure about you guys. Being rejected 80 times is ridiculous. I'm like, when would you guys give up on your dream? So he got rejected 80 times, and finally it got too much for him. And what did he do? He ended up taking his script, right, the book that he wrote, and he threw it in the trash. And he's like, forget this. So, he went to work, and when he came back from his work one day, he found his wife reading the book he threw in the trash. So she found the manuscript in the trash, crumpled and covered in ash, okay? And his wife's name is Tabby. Fished out the papers and started reading that book. And, basically his wife kind of just said, hey, this initial draft, it's like, hey, keep writing this. Finish this story. And she says, I see something in it. And that kind of motivated Stephen King even more after 80 rejections. But his wife believed in him, gave him the courage, and he wanted to continue with the story. Carrie, his first major book that was published, 4 million copies to date and rising, right? Like I said, he's already done 350 million copies, right? Altogether. He's got 77 books, over 350 million copies sold. And right now he's worth $500 million. That's how much he's worth, right? So he's considered one of the best horror writers of this modern day. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, think about that. Imagine you're one of the greatest writers in your genre. And he went through so much where he wasn't a very good writer in the beginning, and he was getting rejected 80 times to the point he gave up and threw it in the trash, but someone believed in him. His wife believed, someone he cared about believed in him, and that gave him the courage that he needed to continue with the story, and then it sold 4 million copies, right? Think about it, he's worth $500 million right now, right? But when you think about this, it's kind of crazy because for us too, we have to understand is when you look at these successful people in the world, they're going through just as much difficulties and tribulations, right? You're living in a trailer park. You don't have enough money, to even buy your wife or buy your family a house. It's so crazy when you think about this. But he continued, and because his wife, imagine you're the wife. The wife is, after being rejected 80 times, living in a trailer park and stuff like that too, she's like, oh, I like this. Yeah, go ahead. Keep writing on it. And it inspired him to write that first book, and it took him, he exploded after that, right? But he went through a ton of difficulty. And, I'm kind of showing my age, but there's another person that I grew up with. His name is, he's actor, Sylvester Stallone. Everyone knows this guy. I'm not sure about this generation. I'm not sure if a lot of the younger people know this, but Sylvester Stallone, back in my days, it was him and Arnold Schwarzenegger that were going back and forth as the action movie star of the decade. These two were just going at it with Terminator and Rambo and and Rocky and stuff like that too. And these were action stars. He was the biggest action star, him and Sylvester Stallone. But the things that people don't know is Sylvester Stallone, he talks like this kind of thing. He kind of slurs with his voice. And I didn't know this, but when he was born, he suffered a complication during his birth that left him with a slight droop on his face and a minor speech impediment, which led to him being bullied at school all the time. So I'm I didn't know he talked like that because of that. And that's kind of what happened when he was young, right? Now, on top of this, Sylvester Stallone and his brother were beaten by an abusive father. So they went through a crazy childhood, moved around from city to city, and he was also in foster care and boarding care because of that, right? So he's living a difficult life, right? So when he was in school too, what his teachers kind of named him? This is kind of crazy how teachers would say this, but Stallone kind of, he's coming from a troubled family. He had a lot of frustrations at school, and he was voted by teachers as the student most likely to end up in the electric chair. I don't think that would happen today, but that's basically saying that he's going to die. He's going to commit crimes so bad that he's going to die in the electric chair. That's crazy. Okay, so what's the movie that made him like take off? It was Rocky. And there's a Rocky movie franchise out right now, and it's earned over like $1.4 billion at the box office. Right? It's one of the most successful franchises of all time. Now, here's the thing. When he went to, he wrote the script of Rocky, and it took him like 3 days, something like 3 days or something like that. It was really, really short amount of time. But he was rejected. You guys can guess how many times he kept going on trying to find if there was any producers that would want to take and buy his script with him as the main actor. He was rejected over 1,000 times. Like, that is crazy. Trying to sell the script and himself as the main actor. And there's one time he was on a movie set and he showed the producers like, hey, I got a script. He brought in the script and they loved it. So this is after over 1,000 rejections. Finally, someone loves the script. But there's one thing they didn't want. They didn't want to have him as the main character. So, and it's kind of, you can't blame him. He was an unknown actor at that time. And, they're like, there's probably better Hollywood types that would take this movie, like really, really famous people, right, to be Rocky. And what they said to Sylvester Stallone is, hey, we'll give you $360,000 for your script. But the condition is that you would not play Rocky. And you got to remember this. At that time, Rocky was saying that he had no car, $106 in the bank. And he even sold his dog to pay his bills. But he said, you know what? I've got this poverty thing down. You don't really need much to live on. I'll figure it out. So he didn't accept the $360,000. So eventually the producers, they said, okay, we'll let you be the main actor. And Stallone, they gave Stallone $1 million to make the movie, starring himself. But they came in, Stallone didn't even spend that much because he used his family and friends in the cast, handheld cameras. And basically, it was only one take to film most of the footage. So even back then, $1 million was extremely low budget, even for a film in the 70s. Okay? So think about this, guys. He spent less than $1 million on it. And when the movie started, screening around Hollywood, it got positive reaction. But the real test was when it was screened at the Directors Guild in front of 900 industry types. Okay, so he said like the theater was packed, the movie, but he said it felt terrible. Right? He says so Stallone was saying that when he's in the theater, he's nervous, but he said the laughs weren't coming where they're supposed to. The fight seemed to be listless and kind of, he said there wasn't really a response. And so Stallone said he just sat there as everyone left the theater, and he said he couldn't believe it. He blew it. He was humiliated. He was saddened. So he was the last to walk out, and as he walked down the 3 flights of stairs out of the theater, everyone from the theater was standing there waiting for Stallone to come down, and they started applauding, like really, really applauding. He says he'll never experience a moment like that again. And for those of you guys who don't know, Rocky went on to receive 9 Oscar nominations, and they won 3 of the Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. And crazy enough, this picture cost how much? Less than $1 million. Guess how much it made? $200 million. So it's like over 200x'd all the investment they put in. And in today's money, because it's from the 1970s, Rocky would be making over $800 million if you were to compare the money, right? So this is Stallone, and now he's worth over like $400 million. So why do I bring up these points is, the key point is when you look at anyone who's successful in anything in life, right? Anything. It's not just spiritual, but we're talking physical, mental, whatever it is. Everyone lives by the exact same principle as you get according to what you've done, and it's about setting those conditions. These people went to absolute extremes to be where they are today, right? And, it's not any different than us setting a 1 a.m. condition for like 3 years, which we did, right? This wouldn't be any different than the conditions that we set spiritually, physically, set spiritually, like setting conditions of fasting, setting conditions of prayer, setting these 100-day, 70-day conditions, right? And what happens is we are reaping the spiritual benefit, and the people of the world who set the conditions for the physical things reap the benefits physically, financially, right? One is more meaningful than the other because what would be the definition of what is truly meaningful? Does it last forever? Is it eternal? And that's the real question to the answer. And I think it's something that will help us also understand is this is why, a lot of times believers are really upset when they see non-believers being so successful. Why do non-believers become so successful? And the answer is, it's all about what you focus on. And that's the principle that God has installed in this world. You get according to what you deserve, right? So if you set great conditions for finance, that's why these people are so rich. It's nothing for us to sit there and say, oh God, why do they get blessed and I don't? And the answer is they focused on those things, and that's why they get those things, right? For us too, we have to think about the exact opposite. What's the opposite of this? The opposite we have to think about is like, hey, what are we receiving? We receive spiritual blessings because we focus on the spiritual, right? Everything in this world is about what you focus on. And it's the same principle that we take for what we do spiritually, put it into anything, whether it's someone who's like a mental genius, like an Einstein, or it could be like someone like a Jordan Peterson. It could be an Andrew Huberman. It could be these people who are just like miles above everyone else in their field. And they're just intellectuals, right? Philosophers of this time is because that's what they focus on, right? What they focus on will get you where you're actually going to be. And that is something that all of us have to understand very, very clearly, right? The rule in this physical realm is, or just in general is, whatever you focus on, whatever you set the condition on, that's what you're going to get. And we have to be people that understand this really well. That's the way God has made things, right? It's not like we sit there and say, oh, because I'm spiritual, then I'm going to become filthy rich. And the answer is, think about this. Sansanim is like the most spiritual, but is he then why isn't he the richest? Because that's not the focus. He's not the richest, but he has everything he needs. He's not poor. He's got good food. He's got a place to stay. He's got a house. He's got people who loves him, right? And that's why he's being blessed in that way. And that's all he needs, right? And for us too, that's kind of the thing that we need to think about also, right? We need to think about it in this way. And if we think about this properly and deeply, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to get ourselves to understand that, yeah, it's true. We go through these sufferings and difficulties to take us to the next level, right? We learn from what we make mistakes in. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, when someone will tell me like, hey, but a lot of people work hard in life, but not everyone becomes successful. And the answer is absolutely, because the answer is not just hard work. It's hard work and always raising your level, right? That's what it really is. Some people are just working really hard in the thing that they're doing, and it's almost like, let's just say you're someone who puts like lead into pencils. Very simple job. If you just focus on that and nothing else, you're going to be really good at putting lead into pencils. And guess what? That's all you're going to be good at. But it's the people that are like, no, this is not it. My life is not about putting lead into pencils, right? Where does the inventory come from? What's the business behind this? How is this person making that much? How am I only making this much, and why are they making that much more? What are they doing differently in my life, in their life and my life? What can I do to reach that level, right? People have to change the way that they think. And if anything, you got to think about it like this. Anyone successful in any aspect, genre, field in life is going to go through absolute suffering and difficulties. That's just the way life is. That's the way it is. And we have to realize it to that level, right? That's what we got to realize. Yeah, that's how life is. And if we don't realize this, we're always going to get stuck. We're going to get stuck in, oh my gosh, why? We're going to get stuck as in, thinking to ourselves like, oh, why am I going through this difficulty? And the answer is, well, what am I going to learn from this? What am I going to get better at? Right? And the way that we think and the angle and the trajectory of how we think has to change. It can't be the poor man's mentality of, oh, why is life like this? Why is my life like this? Why doesn't God help me here? Why doesn't God help me there? And the answer is God's been helping you. You just gotta get out from that mentality, that poor man's mentality, right? And I'm talking poor man as in both physically and mentally and spiritually, right? Anyone can become a great lecturer. Anyone can become a great preacher. Anyone can become a great evangelist. It's a matter of what you put into it. What's the mentality and the mindset you get into, right? Are you doing it just, someone says do surveys and all you do is just surveys and you're just trying to become a good surveyor? Really? Or you're going to look at that and say, wait, something's not right about this. There's got to be a better way, right? There's got to be a better way. Look at the way Providence has been in the past until now that we're now getting into internet ministry, which is so different than what we did in the past. It's so different. And that's something that we have to kind of change our mentality, our mindsets, right? The way that we are, all these things have to change, that we can't do it all like what it was like in the past. We got to always raise the level. And guess what? If we're going to do something big, just like last week's message, God's will, God's work is so big, there's going to be tribulation. There's going to be difficulty. It is an absolute. Which means one of the ways you know you're doing well is you're going through that much difficulty because it's worth that much. We got to change the way we think, the way that we're kind of moving our hearts, our minds, our mentalities. That all has to change. And once we change this is when we're able to do bigger things. The second thing I want to talk about is about testifying, right? And in the message, it talked about you have to be the ones that testify for what you've seen or heard. Right? And I think this is a big one for all of us. And I'm already thankful and grateful for everyone who sent in audios. And I've posted it on Morning Star Drive for everyone to listen to, especially in this month, right, of GGG. And this is something I was like, yeah, this is something I think is very, very important for all of us to testify. And I'm going to tell you, like, when I was in the former faith, testifying was a normal thing. Very, very normal. People talked about what God did in their life. They were so thankful all the time. We were moved and inspired constantly just seeing how God was working in each other's lives, right? And I think it's something we kind of lack in Providence. There's not enough testimony going on. That's my personal feeling, right? You might think differently. You might have seen more. I haven't seen everything, right? But after, I think this is one of the things that we can do, especially for these last week we have left in, the last week we have left in October for giving glory to God. Let's testify. Everyone's got stories. Everyone's got something that God has done for them. We just haven't thought about it, or we haven't shaped the story yet for people to understand how great God is. I'll give you two testimonies that I'm very, very thankful for, and it has to do with me and my family, right? So back in 2020 when COVID was going crazy and lockdowns were happening, people were scared of COVID and such. And COVID is especially detrimental to senior citizens over 65. And this is how crazy the situation was. I was teaching, because it was lockdown, I was teaching Bible study over Zoom, right? I was teaching Bible study over Zoom to I forget what it was. It was on a Saturday. It was one of those CU Saturday Bible studies. And, I'm using my iPad. But the interesting thing is, whenever you get a text message or something, you'll get a banner that shows at the top. And it kind of scrolls down a bit. And you get to see the beginning of what the text says. So while I'm teaching Bible study, I get a text from my mom. I see it's mom. And then it says, me and your dad have COVID, ... I was like, what? I was going, what the? And this is during Bible study. I saw this. So in my heart, I'm nervous as heck, but I'm just teaching Bible study. At the end of Bible study, I talked to my mom. Mom was like, yeah, dad's in bed. He's got flu-like symptoms, this, and this. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on, right? They both got it. And I'm getting really nervous, what's going to happen right now? So I eventually called IMD. I got the inspiration to call IMD at that moment. And I said, hey, can I, my parents both got COVID and they're like over 65, and I'm really, really scared about this. And the IMD person says, oh, perfect timing. I'm going to go see Sunseam. I'm on my way to go see Sunseam right now. I'll make sure to report it. And I was like, thank you so much. And of course, on their way just means they're on the way to Wilmington. And then on top of that, you have to wait in line, or, you have to wait for the right opportunity. So I wasn't expecting anything that soon, right? So finished the Bible study. I'm praying for my parents and all these other different things, just worrying about and stuff like that too, and waiting for them to text back. I texted them once in the middle, but they're like, oh, we're still waiting to talk to Sunseam and stuff like that also. So eventually what happens is we get to maybe a day or two later, right? 2 days later. Maybe a day later, because my parents said it's already been like 2 or 3 days. And I get the text message, and basically the person said, oh, we report to Sunseam. And Sunseam says, you know how Sunseam is like, okay, all right, got it, kind of thing, right? And then I was like, I called my parents. I was like, hey, oh, Mom, Dad, how's everything going? And they're like, oh, we're healthy. I'm like, what? And I was like going, what do you mean you're healthy? And they're like, oh, we went to the doctors, all of our symptoms are gone. And the doctor said we can go back to work. And it's just after 5 days, right? So it's supposed to be like 10 days, but they were completely healthy. Even the doctors cleared them to go back to work after 5 days. And I was so thankful because it really felt like the report was like reporting to God. And, just the report itself was enough as faith. Right? And my parents were basically healed at that point. So I was like so thankful for that. So there's the first one I'm thankful for, because it has to do with my parents and their health. The second one has to do with myself. And this is more of a mental thing. Like I told you guys before that there's that one time in my 3rd year as a head leader in New York, I got this letter out of nowhere, and it seemed straight up like, oh, you stepped down from head leading, and I was like, where did this come from, kind of thing. And of course, I talked a bit before about, people were reporting, like there's like someone from Korea or whatever was reporting on a different channel, whatever it is. They talked to 2 or 3 people, whatever, right? And I was just like going, what? And then in my heart, I was like, God, I need my heart to be in the right place. Because if Sunseam said it, then I'm going to listen to it, right? So I prepared my heart for like an entire week, just like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Step down, go to another region, this, and this. I was like, all right, I got it. And I really put my heart down, and I said, all right. And my heart was ready to leave. And like maybe a week or 2 later, I get another letter, and Sunseam says, stay. And I was like, and this is the part that was really hard for me. It was such a struggle for me because I already prepared my heart to leave. But now he says to stay but my heart has already left. So since my heart has already left, I don't even want to head lead. Like I'm not really there anymore. And I was just like, and my heart wasn't in it. My heart totally wasn't in it. And it was like that for a month. I was just kind of struggling there maybe a month and a half, just struggling by myself. Like, I don't even want to do this. It's just obligation. It's just a job at that point because my heart was totally out of it. And then I finally decided to write a letter to Sunseam. And I told Sunseam, just super honest, like, Sunseam, this is a situation. This letter came out of nowhere and it broke me. But I prepared myself to leave, and now I was ready to leave. But when you told me to stay, my heart had already left. And now I'm struggling. Like I'm struggling with this head leading. And, but since you told me to do it, like I'm going to do my best. And I get a letter back, I think a week later. And Sunseam only wrote 2 sentences. And the first sentence is, I got your letter. And we've heard that one before, right? But the second sentence is what really inspired me to get myself back on the horse. And it was, the one sentence he said is, I know your heart. And that was enough. Once I heard that, I was like, oh, he understands me. And I think that sometimes this is what people need, right? The person that we're talking to, the person that, we may have a difficulty with, sometimes that is the biggest and the best thing we just need to hear is they really understand what you're going through. And when Sunseem just, that second sentence, I was like, wow. And I was like in tears. I was just like, wow, that's what I wanted. I just wanted him to understand me. And that enabled me, at that point, it enabled me to make the right decision for my life. And I think about a month later, not even a month later, I was like, hey, in the right condition and mindset, I stepped down from head leading with the right mindset, right? Not in the dumps, not thinking, oh, I'm just totally not into this because of that letter kind of thing, right? So I'm blaming it on something else, but I was in the right mindset to make the proper decision. And when I stepped down, I was like, yeah, this is how I really think, really feel. It's been very difficult for me. I don't think it really fits me. There's a couple issues that I've had while head leading, right? And of course, I've made tons of mistakes too. And this is the reason why I'm stepping down. I'm stepping down, right? And they asked me to stay for another 6 months so they can find another head leader and stuff like that too. But that was one of the greatest things, right? Because the last thing I want is to step down because I'm like depressed, or step down because my heart's not in the right place. Like, that's the last thing I wanted, and I'd regret it later. But I don't regret it now because my heart was in the right place. I was thinking in the right way, thinking objectively. I was thinking rationally and reasonably about, hey, do I really want to do this? Is this something that really fits me or not? And I was able to make a clear decision with a clear conscience, right? So that was like one of the things that Sunseem did for me that I was so thankful for. Like, it really allowed me to go through the right process in my mind to understand what my next step in life was going to be. So, like, those are like two testimonies that I have. And, that's just my personal ones. I hope, if you guys have any testimonies too, go ahead, put them up, because I think these are very, very important, especially for us when it comes to us testifying for what we've seen and we heard. Like, even my testimony is like, well, how does that, what does it testify? It testified to Sunseem's character, right? He really cares. He really loves people, right? That's like one of the things that I'll testify to, right? He could have rebuked me. He could have said, you're doing God's work. How dare you, like, not have your heart into it? Hey, there's so many things he could have said, but he didn't. And that's why I was really moved and inspired. And he does it. And you can truly just feel God's love, right? And this is where testimonies actually come out. So I hope that if you guys have any testimonies, go ahead and testify to the people, testify to the people around you. You can make an audio if you want there too, and testify to your friends or family on this podcast, whatever it is. Go ahead. I think that's one of the big things that we're supposed to do, is testify for this history. We testify for the one that God has sent, and he testifies for God in Jesus, right? That's the way it works. All right. So I hope that everyone can give more and more, or even think about your testimony and go through them too. Okay. So there it is, guys. That is today's word study, practical word study. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Let's move into the second break of the day.
Just as a warm spring breeze thaws out the frozen ground, you came to me like springtime, and then you embraced my heart. Your words became a song, like a poem in my heart. They came just like a letter, and they opened up my heart. That heart of true sincerity, and all the stories shared between you and I, are like gifts from up above, just the way we are now. Let's converse together, let's protect each other as we comfort one another. Let's follow that one voice that leads us to God, and we'll sing of all the same dreams. river shines and sparkles in the sun. You came to me like sunlight, and you brightened up my heart. Although the setting sun so briefly paints the sky, the beauty and inspiration I'm feeling lingers in my heart. That heart of true sincerity, and all the stories shared between you and I are like gifts from up above, just the way we are now. Let's converse together, let's protect each other as we comfort one another. Let's follow that one voice that leads us to God, and we'll sing of all the same dreams. Just the way we are now. Let's converse together. Let's protect each other as we comfort one another. Let's follow that one voice that leads us to God, and we'll sing of all the same dreams. Just the way we are now. Let's converse together. Let's protect each other as we comfort one another. Let's follow that one voice that leads us to God, and we'll sing of all the same dreams. And we'll sing of all the same dreams.
Okay, so let's get into the third and final segment for today's podcast. On this wonderful Tuesday, we have Provi in the Media. Two articles that I did want to go over, and the first one has to do with the sentencing that happened to the the female executives from last, I talked about it on Monday, but it happened last Friday, I believe, right? So we'll get into the article itself. It says CGM's second in command in sexual crimes, aiding and abetting, sentenced to 7 years in prison. So let's get into the article. The prosecution sentenced KJS, the second in command, who was an accomplice in the assault of Sunstein, the president of CGM, to 7 years in prison. On the 20th, Daejeon District Court Criminal Division sentenced KJS, who was arrested and indicted on charges of quasi-rape, to 7 years in prison. And Civil Affairs Bureau Director, 51-year-old female, who was indicted on charges of aiding and abetting quasi-rape, to 3 years in prison. They were sentenced respectively. KJS, known as number 2 or the successor to Sunstein, is accused of participating in Sunstein's quasi-rape crime by giving pajamas to Maple, a female Hong Kong citizen, in March and April 2018, and instructing her to sleep here while protecting the Lord, and was arrested and indicted. Now, she was also ordered to complete, so this is KJS, complete 80-hour sexual violence treatment program and to be restricted from employment at child-related welfare facilities for the disabled for 10 years. The court said it was confirmed that the defendant did not simply stay at the scene of Sunsim's crime in the past, but directly participated in some of the crimes. And added, the defendant showed no remorse for her involvement in Sunsim's crime, so there is a possibility of blame for her actions. And the judge ruled this is big. In addition, the defendant took the lead in deifying Sunsim within CGM, such as by preaching that Sunsim was unjustly imprisoned due to false accusations by past victims, and provided the conditions for Sunsim to commit crimes against female believers even after he was released from prison. This is what the judge said. And he also said the circumstances after the crime were not good, such as actively cajoling and threatening to prevent the victim from reporting to the media or investigative agencies about her complaint against Sunsim. He said this in the sentencing. There was the person in charge of civil affairs complained that Maple. So the person in charge. The person in charge, the head of the Civil Affairs Bureau. So what happened was Maple complained that she was assaulted by Sunsim, but instead, this head of Civil Affairs said it is God's dramatic love and brought her to the training center. And then on September 14th, 2021, she took Maple to see Sunsim and waited nearby while Sunsim committed the crime. This is what the judge was saying. So the director, who was indicted on charges of aiding and abetting, to 3 years in prison, and she was sentenced, right? And then there was two other executives were sentenced to 2.5 years in prison, and another person is 1.5 years in prison, respectively, and they were taken into court custody. And two other executives were sentenced to no jail time, but probation for 1 year and probation for 3 years, right? So we all know that the 1 year probation is for Kyla. She's admitted to the guilt, and also KJS got 7 years, and then the four people in between I believe, are the ones still in Providence, stuff like that too. So that's kind of how the sentencing actually worked out. And like I said yesterday, guys, this judge is the exact same judge who is doing Sunsim's trial too. And this is the judge that Sunsim's trying to get, the recusal for. Like, hey, we don't want him as our judge. He's very, very biased. And it looks even more biased now that the judge is actually sentencing the people aiding and abetting when Sunsim's trial isn't even done. Which means that, the thing that would be very weird and awkward would be if Sunsim ends up becoming innocent, then why would they go to jail? Like, why would KJS go to jail kind of thing, right? It makes no sense, which makes us understand that, okay, if he's going to sentence these people already on another trial that he's doing that he already thinks Sunsim is guilty, it's not going to be a fair trial, right? And that's why we really, really need to pray for the Supreme Court, the new Supreme Court justice, the president who will see the petition, that this is really an unfair trial, and that we need to change. At least the starting point would be to change who the judge is. So that is kind of the first report. Second report is kind of better news, right? It is between KDH, because so we haven't heard his name in a long time. He's kind of been in hiding, but KDH, he filed a lawsuit against a YouTuber, right, for posting YouTube contents, and basically KDH said that this person's YouTube content is the same as secondary assault on the victims. Okay, so the title is that it has been reported that the police have ruled no charges against a CGM believer who posted YouTube contents. Okay, so this is great news. So KDH tried to sue someone for putting YouTube content out there, and he said that it was like assaulting these victims in a secondary manner, right? So what the YouTuber said was, the YouTuber said that, I believe it was Amy, her facial expression is too bright to be a victim, right? And I'll get into what that actually means, right? So the police decided that it was just the YouTuber's opinion and not defamation sparking controversy, right? So according to Exodus, which is an anti-CGM group, right? The CEO, which is KDH, the Kumsan police basically said that KDH filed a complaint to the Kumsan police station against the CGM believer, Kang, on charges of defamation under the Act on Promotion of Information and Communications Network Utilization and Information Protection, which is, basically saying it's like fake news or it's like going to be defamatory against the people he's talking about. And a decision was recently made to not forward 21 of the videos as no charges, right? So there's basically these charges are going to be dropped. So on April 17th, Kang uploaded a video saying that Amy, an Australian female student, walked around with a group of people the day after she was forcibly molested, as she said, and that she looked bright enough to be called a victim, which basically sounds like sarcasm, like, hey, she looks bright enough to be a victim, right? So the police confirmed the reported video, and since he expressed his opinion, it was difficult to say that he had damaged the victim's reputation. Also on April 3rd, the Hong Kong victim, Maple, claimed that the recorded statement made through Netflix, the Netflix audio, the Kang said on his YouTube video that it was edited and manipulated, but the suspect uploaded a YouTube video based on the report and received a report from a digital forensics agency in Taiwan, right? So accordingly, it was judged that it was difficult to view it as defamation based on false facts because this is coming from real digital forensics. So in addition, there are also videos containing claims such like this YouTuber's video is claiming that Netflix's I Am God is a false broadcast, that it's slandering Sunstein through fake recordings and false reports, and that the recordings of those claiming damage were manipulated, edited, and patched up to the end. And they decided not, and that's why the police decided not to forward the case, saying it was only an expression of opinion and could not be considered defamation, especially because it's using fact and its opinion on that fact, right? That's great news, guys. We have KDH trying to sue people for defamation, for, sharing their opinions on what they think about the people or the facts that have already come out. And the charges were not filed. They were dropped. So that is great news. Also for me, it's great news. It's great news for me is because, I feel much more safer that when I go to Korea or whatever it is, there's not going to be police that come to me and say, oh, we're going to charge you for this, this, and this because you said this on your podcast, right? He doesn't have to like what I say. It's like, it's opinion, right? And it's opinion based upon the facts that we're seeing right now, right? And for me, is like, even for me, I tell everyone straight up, is like, hey, guess what? I am not employed by Providence at all right now. This is all on my own. This is my personal feeling, my personal thoughts on the situation, right? And that's why it's opinion. We have freedom of speech, freedom to say our opinions, right? And that's why it's, I think that's a big win for all the people that are doing YouTube channels and stuff like that too, right? So at least, hey guys, we got a win there. The next thing, we got to pray. We got to keep praying. We got to make sure that the sentencing of the female executives, we can get rid of that, right? We got to change that judge. Like, that's got to be a huge thing, and we hope that the Supreme Court will listen to it. So that's one big thing. We have to also pray for the president as he gets the petition. There's a lot of things we need to pray for. And the one thing good about the president is he's an ex-lawyer. So he is someone that will be able to understand it a lot better, and I hope he sees how corrupt it really is. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the news going out over there for Provi In The Media. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I hope you guys have more to pray about and more to understand, which means, that's the end of today's Tuesday podcast. Have an amazing and awesome day, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can